We are here.
Welcome to the show, everybody. To the Creative Crucible.
Yeah, some name that we just landed on, actually. We've been wanting to do this for a long time. So without further ado, as Cody said, welcome to the show. This is our kickoff. This is our inauguration with this channel on YouTube. I'm Chad.
I'm Cody.
And like he said, this is the Creative Crucible. And Crucible, for the lack of, or actually for the exact meaning, definition that it is, Crucible is where the action takes place, right? It's where chemical reactions and all kinds of things take place to create what it is you're trying to create, right? So that is, in essence, what the room that we're sitting in. This is where the ideas come to life. This is where we ideate, we ruminate, we
gestate.
Ingestate.
Yes.
Indigestate.
Gustate and any other.
Gustate, right?
Yeah.
So this is where it happens. This is where we do what we do. And
Absolutely.
what we do and what we're about, what this whole show and channel is going to be about, is ultimately being creative.
Yeah.
So about 10 years ago, Cody and I started co-creating together. And it was somewhere along that time that I answered the question for myself and asked him the question, what would you do? If every bill was taken care of, you didn't have to write a check to pay for your electricity, for your car payment, for your mortgage payment, for your rent, anything. If all of that was taken care of, what would you get up every day and do? Not just for fun, but to be productive, to fulfill a purpose. What would it be? What would you do? And my answer came, relatively soon after that question was posed. And my answer simply was to get up every day and create something. And I have made a joke about that as whether I create kids, which I've done 4 times, or, create an environment that you live in, your cultural environment, your social environment, everything that you create, everything you do, you're creating, right? You're trying to put yourself in a surrounding that is very, very inspirational and very creative. So we started, based on my answer, and then Cody came up with his answer, which was on the spot.
The original answer I gave you was that I wanted to make knives with my dad whenever that question was posed.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
That your dad makes knives. I'm not just talking about knives. I'm talking about some badass, Damascus steel, hand carved, handles and hilts and just great knives. So you were working kind of alongside your dad.
Yeah, for a time. And long story short on that, life goes on, things go down the road. And that question, I think, ultimately changed to the second time around because I was asked the question twice.
A few months later, maybe a year later.
Something like that.
Right.
And all the roundabout way conversation led to basically create. Because there was a lot of fields that I had interest in. I wanted to just make things. So really, it came down to create because ultimately it was like, I've always played with and been interested in Photoshop, like doing graphic design, doing videography, photography, video editing. But then, of course, I had, the time with trying to learn, a knife maker's trade and everything like that. So it was really just kind of creating things. And so in a broad term, that's what it landed on.
Well, and, during that process, Cody I actually invited you to the shop where I was building leather goods and cowboy boots and all kinds of creative things. That was our business at the time. And I invited him to the shop to bring his dad's knives. We took pictures, went through that whole process. And I think that's when you began to see that this is a business. It can be a business. It can be a lifestyle. And, you know, the pictures for you, and actually for your dad, you know, that kind of upped the game, right? And you saw, we both saw how you could bring a static, you know, object, just, you know, yeah, a beautiful knife, but how a picture could really change the way it's perceived by the end user or the customer, potential buyer, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that really, for me, that changed my thinking, because at that time we were just starting to get into doing really good product photography. Mm-hmm. And how does, you know, product photography can seem kind of mundane or, you know, just kind of, you know, whatever. But when we realized that you could really change the attitude of the customer, the end user, the onlooker, the person who stumbles onto your website and sees how you take photography, it tells a lot about the product, right? How you take the photography, the creative genesis of posing this thing just in a way that's different. And so I think together for both of us, we landed on the idea of we got to get up every day and create. And that genesis started a ball a-rolling, if you will. So. I think it was a day out of the blue. I had made a new guitar strap. That was a big part of our business, was guitar straps. You know, really cool, like out of the box stuff. We'll show you some pictures. But I had made this guitar strap. We named it, and I gave it to Cody, and I said, look, you're going to take pictures of this thing. We need to write some copy to describe it. And I said, take this home. Or the assignment was go home and write a backstory about this guitar strap. Well, lo and behold, the next day or so, you came in with this whole page describing this war that had happened in another world. And
in a world that didn't exist.
A world that did not exist. In fact, nothing existed except for this war that you had described.
Yeah.
And man, did the light bulbs go off for us.
Yeah.
So we took that one page description of a war, and we went to town, and we started linking all of our products that we were making for our website for people to buy. We started linking all that back to backstory and another world. Well, that led to story. That led to history. That led to culture and geography and a map and all of these things. And yeah, we really started world building.
Yeah.
And so to really make a long story short, although it's already been long probably, this page or this channel, this show, the Creative Crucible, is hopefully going to be the output, sharing with you what we're creating, sharing with you how we create some things, and hopefully being an inspiration to you as you jump on this creative, bandwagon yourself. This is a new world we're living in, and it's very ripe for fantasy. And we've been doing this now for over 10 years and written a couple of novels. We're actually, we call that our research and development.
Right.
Because we've not released those yet. But we're in the process of a draft that we will release. And so today, if you came onto this video, it is our pleasure and our joy and our purpose to share with you something that we think is very vital and very important to if you're fantasy or if you're sci-fi or if you're dystopian, our world writer, novelist, RPG campaigner, whatever particular genre or category you're trying to world build in, this particular channel and this particular series of show or episodes is going to hopefully enlighten you and encourage you, inspire you to build better worlds and to build great looking maps. Yes, I said it, maps. That's what this video is going to be all about, as well as introducing you to us. I'm kind of the artist, Cody's kind of the engineer, and we both cross over in that. And you're going to see that in this video where we will do that very thing. One will create, one will recreate, engineer, and then we'll cross over and do a little bit of both. So this video is all about, after of course, hopefully a proper introduction, is going to be about how to make great looking maps. And this will be the first of several episodes we think, and we're excited to share this with you, and hopefully you will again be inspired and and just do it, right? Just jump out onto the blank page and do it. Watch what we do it better than we do. That's what we hope. In fact, some of these things we've developed, some of these techniques, you can probably leave in the comments better ways to do things, right?
Right. It's not always the most efficient way, but it's the way that we've learned how to do it efficiently. There's lots of different ways to go about this, and you'll find a ton of different things on the internet about how to make maps and how to do X, Y, and Z and how to world build, and hopefully we can just help you fine-tune anything that you might be working towards. Because this is going to go a long roundabout way, because there's tons of ways that you can do this. This is and it covers a span of mediums as well. It's if you're doing anything from as complex to you're a filmmaker, video game producer, or you want to write novels like we've been doing and working towards, or something as simple as you got a new tabletop RPG coming up and you want to just really do something homebrew that is you and for you and your players and everything. It's going to cover a vast span of mediums. So hopefully this series of videos is not only entertaining and informative, but primarily we hope it either fans the flames to help whatever creativity you have brewing in your head to then take a step forward with it, and we also hope that it helps you with maybe any possible apprehensions you may have or hang-ups or anything like that to get started on anything. Very much like what you're watching us doing right here, right now with this current recording. We're doing it because you can't get caught up in perfectionism. You're going to have to start it at some point. Or you can't just decide, you know what, there's plenty of those things floating around out there. I can't contribute much. Just set out and do it, because this is all about creating. And we've often said to each other and in every venture that we've had, really the motto of a lot of good times and dark times in our lives has always been, if we're not creating, we're dead.
So create your way out of it, right? That's kind of the sentiment. Like if you're having a down day, a melancholy day, blue day, just get one of these, right? This is what you're going to be seeing us use. This is a simple sketchbook that I got from Hobby Lobby somewhere. And it's just, and you can see it's been a lot of stuff's in it. It's just stuff falling out of it. But it's been used, right? So just blank paper. Cody, if you want to grab that pencil and that little mouse. These are the tools we're going to want you to try. Very simple. Cheapo mechanical pencil from Wally World. It's all you need, right? An eraser, maybe, doubtful. And just plenty of lead and the blank page. Last thing you're going to want to have, you don't have to have it, but it certainly is going to save you in the long run. Tell them what we mean, Cody.
These little ball mouses that don't have to pick up. It's not a regular mouse. You are literally just going to use your thumb to move it around.
Yeah, so the thumb instead of the whole wrist, the whole arm, as with the typical mouse, which is like that. This mouse right here, this will kill you. You don't want to use that to do what we're going to do, to what we're going to show you how to do. So that's a Logitech ball mouse. They're not sponsoring this video yet, but that's about a $50 investment. That's about a $10 investment, another dollar. So, you're less than $100 in. Yeah, you're going to have to invest into what you do. You got to love it. You got to go for it, and you got to prepare and do the best work you can do. Right now, if you don't have all of that, doesn't mean you can't start. So
this is just the way that we've done it and that we continue to do it because we work quite well with it.
Yeah.
There's many different ways, like I said, and you maybe even find some other ways that work better for you. But in this video, these are some of the items we're going to be using, and some of that is because of preference, and then others is because we think it is just a better way to go about it if you're going to go about it in this form or fashion. So, before diving off into the video or even going any further, just real quick, everybody, if you would please give us a like down below and subscribe, and make sure your notifications are turned on so this way whenever we start releasing more and more of these videos, you'll be notified whenever we've produced something new for you to entertain and inform, hopefully.
And we're going to do that on a regular. So you see behind me is Aerodon Entertainment. That is the name of our parent company. A lot of things are going to fall under Aerodon Entertainment, and the word says, it's the dawning of a new era. Literally, today, the dawning of a new era for us, likely the world, more on that later. But yeah, you're seeing Chad here in a cowboy hat. Not the typical look, maybe, but I am who I am. I'm going to be who I'm going to be. Cody's, from a different, place and a different time. And he's going to offer a whole different perspective. So together we are creating in this room, this crucible, where we're challenging each other and we're really inspiring each other, and we're trying to put out the best we can put out with the resources we have. Fortunately, there's resources aplenty at your fingertips. We also are going to tell you right now that we use Adobe Photoshop. That is going to take another investment. And it's a worthy investment because if you do it right, you get the whole suite. There's a lot of things you can do. But there are other tools you can use if you don't have Photoshop.
Mm-hmm. GIMP is free software that's been floating around out there forever that you can use and download. I don't know what the latest version is that they're on now. I think it's like 2 point something, but GIMP, it's basically the same thing. It's just different hotkeys, a little bit of different stuff, so there will still take some learning there, but all of that is for the purpose of being able to digitize all this stuff. Because here's the thing. There's a lot of freeform things that we do and some analog stuff, obviously with the notebook and the pencil. But our main goal is to get it into a digitized form, because that's where we're going to have the most creative control over what we plan to do. And when we started this journey of world building and making these stories and building this completely different existence, this completely different reality. That was just it was the best way to do it, is to have everything digitized, because you could alter whatever landmass on a map with key efficiency. If you didn't like the way something turned out in your free sketch, well, if you have it on the computer now and in some sort of photo editing or shape editing software, because I know Illustrator you can use as well, along with some other things, because that one's also Adobe. It basically will allow you to say, like, you know what, I don't like that island up there in the north, so we're going to move it over here, or we're just going to get rid of it altogether, or this coast is looking a little too, made it a little too straight, vertical or whatever, so we're going to tweak it just a little bit and make it look more natural, or whatever it might be. But it's also going to help you add so much more to it as well.
Yeah.
When it, once again, you just have so much control over it when you do this. That's why we're going down this list and why we're going to do what we're going to do in this video.
So if you like maps, if you like fantasy, if you like everything from Lord of the Rings to, Sanderson, to George Martin, to the latest, greatest fantasy author that you like, if you're like us, maps are kind of where it starts. If it's a good map, man, we're off to the races. We're excited to dive into this world. So without further yapping or jaw-jacking, we're going to jump into this, and we're going to create a world, an alternate reality, another place in the grand universe. We're going to create it together. You're going to be here with us along for the ride every step of the way. So we're excited about that. So here we go. This is kind of world building 101, map making 101, and the first of several episodes. So thanks for joining us, and let's have some fun. Okay, so here we are with the blank page. Probably one of the scariest things that we as creators face, the blank page staring back at us. But really all this is a sketchbook you can pick up at Hobby Lobby, Michael's, Walmart, wherever. Simple, just white sketch paper and a plain, very cheap mechanical pencil for, being able to do detail. And I'm just starting randomly with the outline of a landmass in this particular world that we are building from thin air, the ether. There is no predetermined idea in my brain right now. I'm just drawing, just enjoying the formation here of something from nothing, right? Just the outline, random. Yes, random in the way that I'm moving the pencil. You can see me at some points I'm long and flowing, pretty smooth. Other points or other areas I'm doing a movement of the pencil that makes the line more jagged. This is what the world that we live in, our own world here. If you look at any geographic map, any topographical map, Google Earth, satellite imagery, a world atlas, you can zoom out and you can see the jagged lines, the edge of the world, if you will. It's pretty random, and it's formed by water. It's formed by erosion. It's formed by all kinds of natural phenomenons. And over eons of time, things do change, but not drastically. So that's in our world. In this world, in a fantasy world, freedom is everything. You can create what it looks like, and then you can create why it looks that way. You can create why it changes randomly, rapidly, never. You can have huge sections of your continent falling into the ocean for whatever reason. There's all kinds of freedom and openness in your world that you can create. There you see I'm doing long, kind of jagged, finger-like peninsulas into the ocean. I can, in my mind, see these as being very mountainous on the face, jagged and rough, and reaching long into the ocean. These peninsulas create waterways between, so you have inlets, you have coves, sounds, straits, and gulfs, bays. And there, right there, you see there's a lot of different features that are just fun, man. You can have a lot of fun with towns and think about, what we all think about when we think about fantasy maps. You've got Tolkien, you've got Martin, you've got Dungeons and Dragons. Think about the Sword Coast, man. That thing is littered with towns and features islands, pretty in depth, very detailed. And so when I'm creating these land masses, that's what I'm kind of going for. Is, some of these areas are going to be desolate and stark, and some of them are going to be very populated and very historically annaled in our world, where lots of things happened here. Maybe they're not happening now. Maybe they're in a downturn of culture and civilization. But historically, this is where the first cities popped up on your world. Or maybe there was a great war, and out of that war, the victory, went to this particular faction of people, and they raised up great walls, and cities were formed, and all kinds of different history, again, and culture and geology and volcanoes. And I try to stay away from the deep, fundamental rootedness that we kind of feel like we have to stay stuck to, that is in our world. In other words, I don't necessarily have to have mountain ranges occur like they do in our world, although that's probably the simplest way to do it. I'm not bound to that, although it probably naturally happens in my brain or as I'm drawing. Here you see me putting in islands. That's what I do towards the end. After I closed that landmass, I'm looking back and going, okay, we need some composition. Because our thinking is, if it looks good, it is good. We want a great looking, detailed map that is not far removed from what we all know as maps. So here I've got islands occurring off of peninsulas, which is natural. And small, very detailed. This drives Cody a little crazy when he's tracing digitally, which you will see after this. We don't have to do it this way. We don't have to go to paper and pencil. But what we like about it is it does give it an organicness, a realism that can't be necessarily... it's just harder for AI and, other replication, I guess, or other generated type maps. Here you see me putting 6 small islands around this other bigger island. Man, that tells you something. Something is really, it's ripe right there for some kind of cultural, civilizational interplay right there. Here I'm going to put in a landlocked lake, and I'm thinking about where I grew up. in the middle of this country, there's a lot of lakes, and they're fed by tributaries and rivers and small creeks, and they look kind of like what I'm drawing here. And as we go back and later on into the details, you'll see rivers feeding this lake, rivers and tributaries, because that's what I'm going for right there. Pretty big lake. And in future videos, we'll talk about size. We'll talk about mileage. How far is an inch, right? The legend. Here I'm going to put in another lake, more like a landlocked lake, like what, Caspian Sea, the Great Lakes in our country. Just litter in a few more islands, again, for realism and for creative fun. You know, what kind of people live here? What kind of cultures are going to occur here? And what does this do to the waterways? Are there ships and trade routes? Are there navies that war? And these are, you know, there's fortresses here, or there's massive harbors where ships are docked. Again, just thinking about the realism of our world, that's informing me. And then other than that, it's just random creative fun. But I want it to look real. And hopefully it does. Just one more little island here. I think we've got it. I'm going to hand this off to Cody and let him digitize it. Yep. That's it.
All right, so after we've imported this onto the computer, we have brought it here into Adobe Photoshop. I know some of you guys may not have access to it. It can get pretty pricey. But what we're doing here, you can also do in things like GIMP as well, which is free to use. But this is how we've done it, and we're big fans of the Adobe products, and I've been on Photoshop for over a decade, so at this point it's just what I'm used to. But as you can see here, we're going to start out with our freeform pen tool. Is what we're going to. You can either get up from your toolbar, or you can just use the hotkey, which is P on your keyboard. And we're going to pick a random part here. It doesn't really matter where you want to start. Very much like the blank page, just as long as you start somewhere is what actually matters. So the way that we would have done this back in the day is we would have had a Wacom with a pen tool that you could have actually physically used on your computer screen, which was fantastic for this kind of thing. And that actually skips this whole process of doing it free form on pen and paper as well. So if you happen to have one of those, or you want to invest in one, it's not a bad investment. We had one for years and years. And being able to, we had it screwed into the wall and pull it out and use it, allows the tracing that you're seeing right here to happen very, very organically. And really, at that point, you could have just taken the brush tool or the freeform pen and could have just gone straight to the digitization if you knew the size of the page that you wanted. This is the way that we do it because in Photoshop, we like to be able to use it to create all of our vector shapes so that we have the utmost control over this. And right now what I am using is a Logitech ball mouse. So that is very, very helpful. When I'm traveling across multiple screens, but also for moments like this, whenever I'm just trying to ease my way up and just really trace out what Chad has done here on this. Being able to go slowly without having to pick up a mouse or physically move a mouse around and, speed up carpal tunnel. When you use it for decades, that's a thing that could happen, Not saying that, it's any other mouse, different type of mouse is bad, but if this is kind of your job where you're using it all day, every day, and you're using it frequently in things like Photoshop, it can happen. So to help you kind of see better, we're going to turn this into a red here. And like I said, I've just been taking my time tracing along what he has already drawn. And usually it's pretty good about setting the right anchor points when you're just doing freehand and following along here, even along these really gnarled coasts that you see here that he's built. And so tracing along this, another thing that you can do if this gets tiring is up at the top options bar there, you can see there's a little box called magnetic. If you click on that, you're going to see this magnet out next to your pen tool. And what that's going to do is when you are tracing along any image, not just a map, but most anything, it will find the edge of that image that you're trying to trace around. So with it being white paper with black pencil marks, makes it super easy for it to locate and immediately drop anchor points as long as you are relatively around where you need to be for those. As you can see, we're going around now and it is dropping anchor points behind me. And this is just we picked up where we left off, where we took a break, changed the color of our stroke, and then we to click the magnetic box. You always just pick back up from the last anchor point that you had dropped off, or pinpoint, whatever you want to call it. Now you're doing that and you see it goes along very, very smoothly. It is not perfect. As we'll see later, there will be some times where it either gets a line too straight or it misses a part. But for the most part, this is a huge time saver and life saver if you just get tired of holding down the mouse button and working your way around such complicated shapes as these shapes that no man should know. But right here, you can see as I've sped things up a little bit, I've gone a little haywire. And that's because another downfall of it is once you have started with that magnet tool, you're pretty much locked in. And if you go crazy like you just saw a minute ago, what happens is that it won't reconnect to any of those other points. You saw me try to jump around and go into those, but it will not until you actually find some end point, or at this point, your starting position. Now, I could have just kept going and finished it out and then deleted the points that I didn't want and maybe rearranged some, but I decided to start all over because I felt that would be a better time saver for using something like tracing a landmass versus doing basic geometric shapes. So, whenever you're doing this, just keep going along, and like I said, it's a huge time saver. I know there's also other ways that you can do this. I know Illustrator has some ways to trace shapes, but A, I don't know Illustrator that well, and B, I just don't want to deal with multiple file types across multiple programs. So as you can see here, we now have it completely traced out. It's looking real nice. However, it is one solid shape and image right now. So we do have these massive bodies of water in the middle of this landmass right here. Now you could just make completely separate shapes. I don't recommend it though, because what's going to happen is you're just going to fill up your layers bar over there. Not only that, it's not going to translate into a proper shape the way that it needs to be. So what I'm going to do is, as you've seen up there, is in your options bar, there is different options like subtract from image or combine shapes. We are picking the subtract and going over these Great Lakes or inland oceans, whatever they just so happen to be in this world. And what that does is when we start tracing around them, just like we did the entire continent itself, is it's going to subtract from that area. So what it's going to do is actually make the shape hollow in those points as it's supposed to be, rather than just making it a whole brand new shape. On our layers over there, you see there's still only the one shape layer that has happened. So right here, we're going to change it to a full solid and fill, and now you can see where those lakes are. We completely took them out of that solid image. So now that's more of a proper shape for this landmass. Now, whenever it comes to all these smattering of islands that are surrounded over here, what you would want to do is you also, once again, can just make a plethora of new shapes and fill up that layer bar and group them into certain sections. However, what we're going to do is, like you just saw up there in that same options bar area, is we're going to go to not subtract, but combined shapes this time. And what that is going to do is whenever we trace around a completely separate island, a completely different shape, we just did it and we still have the one shape layer, meaning this is all becoming just one individual shape. And it gets a little tedious with some of these smaller islands, to the point where the magnetic checkbox is not fulfilling what I need it to fulfill anymore. On some of these other ones, it's still doing fine, but here in a moment, we're getting ready to get onto these much smaller ones where I'm just going to go back to the freeform pen tool. I'm going to uncheck the box, so this way I can have complete control over it. But as you can see, you want to use, like I said, the combined shapes for your other islands and isles and completely different land masses. And then whenever you have areas like inland seas or Great Lakes or things of that sort, that's where you will want to use subtract in that options bar when it comes to using the pen tool. And so once again, from there, we just make it a really, really nice breeze. On the bigger islands, we'll keep the magnetic checkbox because that'll help us save a ton of time. And then whenever we have to deal with these really, really small smattering of islands, we're just going to go freeform and we're just going to do the best we can. This is all just getting the basic shape, because right now it's much easier to get these details whenever you're just freehand drawing it. Tracing them, it doesn't always wind up that way. I know there was a way that you can select the amount of anchor points you could drop in Photoshop called Curve Fit, and that would probably help determine how straight your lines are going to be or how complex they will be. The lower the number, the more complex, because the more anchor points it's going to drop down. And as you can see right here, fill it, and it's all one singular shape, and now it is completely digitized. It is an official shape in Photoshop. And so from there, we're just going to save it, make sure that we have it, so in case anything happens, we don't lose it. But now we are ready to actually start filling in the little details and using this to our benefit in any way that we see fit. Well, we hope you guys gleaned something from this, and hopefully it's just one step for you to take in your journey to create something. Create a world that doesn't exist. Create things that you want to see. Create things that you like, even if it's something that's never been seen before, or if it's something that's been seen 100 times, but the classics never die. So in the end, we just hope that this is one video that you've enjoyed for now and that you'll stick with us for the remainder of videos that are to come.
Yeah, and like Cody said, writing, creating, I've written probably in my life, I don't know, over 500 songs, right? So I've spent some part of my career writing songs. And the whole idea behind that was to not just write another song, not just say I love you in 3 minutes, like it's been done 1 billion times. But it was to write something that would be a standard, something timeless, something that, like the Christmas songs that we all hear every year at the same time. Those are standards. Something you hear and it's just part of the culture. It's part of the core fabric of who we are. That's the idea and maybe that's a lofty goal, I don't know, but Tolkien took time to write what I would consider not only the grandfathered piece of fantasy. He's considered the grandfather, right, of fantasy.
Pretty sure that's the apt name.
Founding father is what I would say. I think Gary Gygax would say that. I think George Martin would say that. Regardless, I don't know if he set out to write a standard, but I think he set out to write something that would last beyond him. I think he thought that big. Maybe not when he was telling the story of Bilbo Baggins to his kids. Maybe he didn't quite think it then. But as it grew and it developed and it evolved, it turned into something that is not only masterful, but will live in the annals of time and history. That's pretty amazing. Should we set out to do that? Absolutely. So that means it's going to take time. It means it's going to be hard work. It means it's going to take every bit of discipline, effort, self-motivation, stick-to-itiveness, long suffering. It's going to take time. So, pull on your boots, pull up your bootstraps, and get in the game, get on the wagon, and take the blank page and fill it up. Even if it stinks, even if it's no good in the beginning, by page 10, it will be good, or it'll be markedly better, right? So, here you go. So this is hand drawn, right? We're going to keep doing it organic as long as it makes sense. And we think that adds a little bit of an element of intrigue, and I think rootedness in the fact that this all comes out of us. It's not AI. Now, AI will play a role, and you'll see it play a role with us. But to create something from nothing, it's going to take us. It's going to take people. It's going to take hearts and minds and souls and, just this creative genesis that Cody and I strive for every day. That's what we live for. It's what we want to do. So take this video. Again, this is going to be a little bit of a different video because it's really an introduction to what we're trying to do. So as we said in the beginning, and as we say now at the end of this video, this is part 1, but it's also our introduction. So again, I'm Chad.
I'm Cody.
And we are the Creation Crucible. This is where it happens, okay? So stay tuned. Part 2 is coming really quickly. And we hope that you will like, share, tell your friends about this. Subscribe. That's probably the biggest thing, because you're not going to want to miss the next video as we take this little map, this little one page that we built. You've already seen it evolve. It's really going to take shape next video and the videos to come. So stay tuned. We look forward to seeing you guys again, and we will absolutely keep creating.